Good morning and welcome back to Planet Althistory. Today we are going to discuss what if the spring of 1848 and 1849 succeeded. The spring of 1848 and 1849 is also a term which can be used to say the spring of nations in Europe. This spring was nothing more than revolts, revolutions and all of that happened and occurred during those years, especially in Europe. The revolutions, they arose from such a wide variety of causes that it is very difficult to view them as resulting from a coherent movement or set of social phenomena. Numerous changes had been taken place in European society throughout the first half of the 19th century. Both liberal reformers and radical politicians were reshaping national government. Technological change was revolutionizing the life of the working class. A popular press extended political awareness, and new values and ideas such as popular liberalism, nationalism, socialism began to emerge. Some historians emphasize the serious crop failures, particularly those of 1846, that produced hardship among peasants and the working urban poor. The nobility was unhappy with royal absolutism and rebelled against the rulers, but very often countered by peasants, who in turn were unhappy with the nobles. This scenario will be a very difficult one, and I will take mainly two parts of it and change them a little bit. Moreover, the spring of 1848 and 1849 was already in some way successful, as they could abolish the French monarchy and also get some of their demands met in various dependencies, countries, and whatever you want to call it. The things I will change is that King Frederick William IV will accept the crown, and that the Hungarians are very successful in their rebellion against the Austrian Empire, and they will somehow manage to break away. As for Frederick William IV, he only reconsidered most of his reforms because the nobility could get their power and position back, fighting against the people. So you have to imagine that it was almost like a civil war with different factions, and the nobility, they somehow fought the peasants and also other factions back, and they regained the power. So of course you will then take back certain steps to appease the ones that were winning. If they were less successful, it is very likely that Frederick William IV would continue his path and thus accept the title of Emperor of the Germans. Because, there was this parliament in Frankfurt where every German dependency or country, and even non-German but more like Germanic duchies and so on, they sent representatives to discuss certain things. It was just like a parliament but without really much power. And so Frederick William IV would be in a situation where he would see that the nobility is not really winning this war or these rebellions, and thus he would somehow need to find legitimacy, and that's where he would probably accept the demands of the Parliament of Frankfurt and thus get the title of Emperor of the Germans. As such, policies that were done later on by Bismarck would start already in a rudimentary way since the 1850s. Now, as for Austria, we would need two things. First of all, the Russians would perhaps not intervene because they would be facing a much bigger rebellion somewhere, Poland, and the Hungarians would almost manage to take on the Austrians in OTL, and thus, without the intervention of the Russians, they would be able to declare independence, but not have a king yet, or some type of a ruler. With that in mind, and also the German parliament being established in Frankfurt, including Austrian politicians, Frederick William IV could march into Austria and strike a deal with the Habsburg and even the Hungarians. The problem for monarchs at that time is that if some areas stay relatively unruled and in anarchy, it could create some bad ideas for the people and put the monarchs in a position of danger. So if you have like a neighboring country that is facing a lot of unrest, you will not really be happy, and you could even get some problems. Frederick William IV would propose to rule over Austria, while the Habsburg would continue to rule Hungary. Perhaps not the best solution, but still Germany would be unified. It would respect the wish of the German people. The Habsburg could continue to rule, but in a smaller kingdom or empire, and the Hungarians would become independent. As a result, Frederick William IV would have already at least some type of satellite state within Hungary. The next deal would be the one with Poland. While most of the old Austrian crown lands are annexed by the German Empire or transferred to Hungary, the Polish part could not easily be annexed. And since the Russians would have, in this timeline, more problems with Congress Poland, Frederick William IV could somehow intervene and force the Russian Empire to let Congress Poland and Galicia unite. He could even suggest a ruler from the Habsburg dynasty, which would improve his relation with the Habsburg dynasty and give him the opportunity to win another satellite state. The United Kingdom would not like how this would evolve and certainly try to persuade the French to at least keep an eye on Germany, but due to the instability of France, it would be difficult to somehow communicate with them because, with whom should they communicate? With the rebels, with the government that actually has no power, or with a king that was ousted out of his country? What happens next is that either Germany could form good ties with Russia to keep the Poles and the Baltic in check, and even get some sphere of influence in Scandinavia and the Balkans, while later on the UK could ally with Italy and even help them to form much sooner to counter the Germans and France. So if you have already a very strong Germany, it would be very ideal if you could find another country that could somehow counter them. And in case that the French are not really having a good government that keeps control over the whole territory, why should they not help the Italians or Garibaldi to form Italy and win a very good ally? So thus also the territories of Italy, they would be a bit different, and perhaps Piedmont would never become French in that timeline. The Ottomans, they could be taken out from the Balkans together by the German-Russia alliance and revive their alliance with France and win also the UK and France as a partner. But with Italy, they would be at odds. So what happens next might be an alternate World War One, where Germany and Russia with their puppets could attack the UK, France and the Ottomans, while Italy would switch sides to create a colony in Libya. And in this time they would switch from the British, French and Ottoman alliance to the German and Russian alliance. And after switching, they would be promised by the Germans to get Italian-speaking lands. This would be very good for the Italians because like this they could finally unify all of the Italians under one country. And I mean, come on, if you get free territory, of course you will then somehow consider participating in a war. And you even get it without a single fight, so it's a very good deal for Italy. And thus we will have a world where probably Germany together with Russia they will win, and also with Italy, but later on there might be a Cold War between the Germans and the Russians because of their rivalry later on. And it would very much create a very interesting alternate World War II if it would ever happen. So that's it for today. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, support me also on Patreon, and join my forum, forum.planetalthistory.ga. Until next time on Planet Alt History.